Oh, hold on. I forgot one thing. Oh, so important. My official studio is right here. So we'll cut that out. There we go. Now we're legit.
Perfect. Fix the sign though. It looks like it's crooked.
I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm trying. There we go. How's that? Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Ready. Okay. We're going to start from here. Welcome to the next episode of Brain Hope Reality. Trying to get rid of PTSD, make it PTSI. We'll talk about that later. We have a very special guest, who I've known for a number of years, Ms. Tameka Walton. And we're going to have an interesting discussion, I think. And here we go. Ms. Tameka, welcome aboard, buddy.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Can you just tell us kind of your quick background, how we met, and where you are today? And this way the audience will understand, I think, why I wanted to have you on.
Yeah, quick background. So I am currently a social worker working in a nonprofit called Restored Hope, but I've known Eugene, as he mentioned, for, oh my gosh, we met probably 13 years at this
About
point.
that.
13 years
All right.
ago, working in the Inglewood community, working with a group of young men that most would say were actively involved in the violence in Chicago. And that's kind of the relationship that Eugene and I we
Not
met
just that,
under.
and it was multi-generational, right? That was a whole thing,
Multi-generational.
which I really loved. The whole concept, I Grow Chicago, it was multi-generational. The children, mid-level, the older population, and that the young men involved were definitely involved in violence. No question about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it started, in the home, right? Like if something was missing in their home, oftentimes, then, for me, it was if the mom was missing her relationship with her children because she was on fight or flight or just dealing with life, right? Then oftentimes the child was able to kind of seep through the seams of the home. It starts in the home.
No
It
question.
starts in the home.
Anyway, if you don't mind, finish giving a quick background, and I'll throw something in, and we can bat it around. How's that?
Yeah. So I guess the background would lend to what I'm doing right now. After I Grow Chicago, I realized just what I said, that the women were often suffering in silence, right? There was something going on with the women, the mothers, the girls. And so Restored Hope was kind of rebranded to support women and girls in these, communities that are often systematically held down and oppressed. Moms are constantly struggling to provide for their children, provide for themselves while showing up to society. And what does that look like? And so Restored Hope kind of utilizes the cycle of liberation model, right? As well as our own internal somatic framework to help women heal, but also navigate community while rebuilding and rebranding themselves.
Cool. Well, so the part I always found interesting, I used to before, I'm sure you know that, but before I got married to Robin, you guys used to work together. Robin is my wife. Um, I I spent a couple of years in the trauma unit in Cook County Hospital, so I have been familiar with the violence that occurred in Englewood and places like that. So I was actually always very comfortable with the environment in the sense that it doesn't really matter how you end up in the trauma unit. Everybody bleeds the same color. Uh-oh. Let me check the internet connection. All right, let's see if this works. Sorry, Tameka, the connection seems to be wonky. All right, here we go. Can you hear me? Mr. Tameka, can you hear me, buddy?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you were frozen
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah, something happened to the internet.
You're
it's
froze
the beauty
again.
of internet in a big building. Can you hear me okay right now? Maybe not. Interesting. Huh. Okay. Let's see what's going on here.
Should
All right, how about now? Is that better?
Is it? Yeah, it's better. I was gonna say, is it buffering on your end because it's just freezing on my end?
No, it was mine. It was my problem.
Okay.
Anyway, as we were talking about. I spent time in trauma unit, so I got to see victims.
Sure, what's happening? Do I leave and come back? What do I do?
All right, how's this?
I think it's better.
All right, let's try one more time. I don't know what
Okay.
to say about it. Anyway, as I was saying, I used to spend time in trauma unit in county. I used to work there for 2 years. So I had an opportunity to see a lot of people who were injured or traumatized in a number of different ways. And as I got interested in PTSD and anxiety and stellate ganglion block, which you and I have been very interested in, I became interested in ACEs, which is, as we've talked about, which is adverse childhood experiences. That became very apparent to me. And that's one of the things I was trying to study, which we never got to, unfortunately, in I Grow Chicago. Because if you can reduce that type of trauma, I think children and everybody will do better. Because when people are all wrapped up, walking around wrapped up, it leads to a lot of problems. When you have the guys walking around traumatized by difficult childhoods, then you have the police who are traumatized by the military service or whatever. So you have both people who are fully wrapped up, getting ready to have a problem, and it's very explosive combination. So I have tried very hard to get people calm down, which I think that's one of the things that if I can have one message for, I think, the population in Englewood is that for men, women, children, everybody's wrapped up. Everybody's living in insecurity, food insecurity, whatever, ice insecurity, whatever is going on, and insecurity leads to a lot of problems. And and I think a lot of times women take the brunt of it because people are violent over them, and then the connection with men is some a lot of times unstable, which becomes a problem. What do you think? What do you think of that overall perspective?
Yeah, I think, well, as it relates to ACEs, we know that if the overall, like, ACEs score is high, as it relates to at least biology, which you can understand, it does things to our bodies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I
It's
definitely
kind of
agree.
heart attacks, strokes, increased
That's right.
age, all of that. Hypertension,
Hypertension, inflammation,
huge problem.
you know,
Inflammation, exactly.
and in
Oxidative stress.
women, hormones, right? Like it also impacts, our hormones. And so
Oh, yeah.
I agree. I agree with you. I also, when we think about that, like the deep as well, we kind of spoke a little bit
Yeah.
about that book
I'm sorry.
when
For the
we,
audience, Deep as Well is my
oh,
favorite book about ACEs. It was written by a Jamaican immigrant pediatrician, which I think Tameka actually knows, or
yes,
people around her.
yes, no people
I love
around
that
her.
book. Beautiful book. Beautiful book.
Yeah. So that really, dives deep into what you were just mentioning. But I also wanted to kind of talk a little bit about weathering. Have you heard of weathering as relates to women?
Define the concept. I don't know the concept.
So Dr. Arlene, I want to get her name right. Dr. Arlene Geronimus spoke about weathering, and for women, it deals with like premature aging due to stress, right? And so it does because of constant stress, because of chronic stress, because of all of the things that you just spoke about regarding ACEs. Like if our score is high, it goes right back to heart disease, stroke, hypertension, infant mortality, right? Because we are
Can I
having
interrupt you for a second? So
yes,
weathering, I never heard that term, but I wrote a paper about epigenetic clocks, which measures the speed of aging, and then you can reverse it if you treat PTSD. So it affects both men and women. It's not just women, right? Yeah, PTSD is increased the risk of heart attacks by a factor of two. It decreased biological aging due to oxidative stress in both genders.
that's right. That's
What,
right. So
what's
you're
unique
dealing with
about weathering?
weathering.
I just don't know what weathering means.
It's the premature aging
Aging. Okay, that's
of the
another term
body
for aging. Okay, I
due
got
to
it.
constant stress.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
The physiological cause of weathering, from in the speak we use, at least in my space, is oxidative stress. And then the actual DNA change, the whole concept of epigenetics, that you can actually change the DNA for the better or for worse.
That's right.
Like severe stress activates certain genes that actually makes fight and flight nerves grow further and makes you more stressed. If you can calm that, you can reverse that. I think that's just an amazing concept.
Yes. Yes.
So weathering, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and reproduction, women's system is much more complex than the men because of the hormonal shifts. Also, infant mortality, I assume, is very high in place like Englewood.
Yeah. Actually, the south side of Chicago, right?
Right.
It's higher in the south side of Chicago. One, because of the constant stress that we're under, right? We're delivering babies that are already, you know, got numbers against them in this world. And so if we're delivering babies under with a stressful body, again, what are we doing to the DNA in our children? Which
Well,
basically
we
what
know
you
what we're
just
doing.
mentioned.
We are
That's right.
activating, and the whole concept of epigenetic multi-generational transmission, that stress of a grandfather can still be felt in a
That's
grandchild,
right.
which
That's
is
right.
a fascinating concept to me. But the good thing is, it's not the end of the story. You can actually
That's right.
reverse it, reversible DNA change, that's why mental health is so important. That's why reversing anxiety impact is so important.
That's why somatic practices in general, right? Getting folks to understand what's happening in their bodies, getting folks to take that moment to that mind body connection, right?
Yep.
Release. And some of that is foreign on the south side of Chicago, but thanks to, unfortunately, COVID, right? Where self care has really ramped up in our society because of COVID. So people are understanding the need to rest, right? People are understanding the need
Right.
to, take walks or do things that will combat their daily stress that doesn't cost money, right? Not everybody can afford a gym membership, right? Or to go pay for a $30 yoga class, but they can go take a walk. They can take a moment on their own mat. And so I think that that's when you talk about the reversal, it kind of starts with those very minute things that people at first didn't feel like they had time to do,
Well, the good thing
right?
about this, most of the stuff you just described, you can do. You don't need to pay for a yoga class. You can
That's right.
get a YouTube. You can buy a couple of weights and then just doing push-ups, right? Those kind of things. You can do everything you really need to do at home, which is amazing. Right? The other thing that I found interesting when I was talking to Robin, she was telling me the story that about that a lot of people in South Side cannot close their eyes because they're always hypervigilant. They have to be hypervigilant to survive. That's a fascinating thing that nobody, including small children, don't want to close their eyes because they're too scared. So having place of safety is kind of key.
Yeah, but the sense of safety, I think, is something that's a whole nother conversation, right?
Right. I
Because
got
what
it.
does it really mean to feel safe? Again,
Right.
especially when you're always in survival mode, and it isn't necessarily, the environment, right? I know people in North Kenwood who cannot close their eyes, and they feel a sense of safe, but it's because of the stressors that's in their lives, being able, having to figure out, how to pay the next bill, right? So that sense of safety isn't always tied to gunshots. It's the need to
Oh,
survive,
it's everything, right? I mean,
resilience, right?
right. In ACEs, part of that is, basically the level of stress, right? That's the level of stress or insecurity. So there is food
That's right.
insecurity, there is financial insecurity, whatever the insecurity it is. I mean, it could be just not want to be abducted or shot. That's another issue also, right? All of that, but any insecurity that's produced is really not good for the body. That's the whole thing.
That's
So
right.
somewhere, I'm not, I really, the only answers I can give is physiologic answers. Like I've treated two guys from the hood. I was so happy they had an amazing result. Have you seen that doctor show episode? Was it two guys? Yeah. So that was really interesting to see. One of them, I mean, what a lovely man. He was going to work. He got shot in the head once. Goes back to the same bus stop years later. He gets shot again. Now he's blind. He has, I think, 10 kids. And I can't even imagine the horror of that. And then
That's
we
right.
were able to help him significantly sleep and do those kind of things. So the point is, it is possible to reverse some of those things. It's not a life sentence necessarily. And I really don't know, what kind of resources are available. I'm sure they're pretty limited. And I think that's why a lot of people on the South Side, as far as I understand, go to the hair shops. So
We
it's
go to
easy
what
to
shops?
go hair shop, somebody get a haircut.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You have
That's
human
right.
interaction. Human interaction is huge, right? As
Yeah.
great as Zoom is, a human interaction, human touch, feeling being felt heard, and talking about the issues, I think that's a huge thing. Exposure to other human beings who are
That's
positive
right.
in your life is a huge deal, be it men or women. But I know your particular focus is on women.
Particularly
Uh,
focused on women. Yeah.
no, I get it. So I'm a huge supporter of women issues because my mother took her life when I was an intern. So suicide, I'm sure suicide is significant in Englewood. It has to be. So women, what's interesting, if you look at the difference in men and women, so let's talk about something I think that may be interesting for you. Uh, if the same trauma occurs to a man and a woman, the chance of developing PTSD in a woman is twice as high, factor of two, which is really interesting. The question is, why does that happen? That's the stuff I'm interested in, right?
Yeah.
So if
And
you,
that's real. Yeah.
yeah, I'll give you an answer though. I have a theory, which I haven't been able to quite support, but clinically we see that. So also, I started my whole journey of doing stealth ganglion block for other things besides the standard pain with hot flashes. So it turns out when you take estrogen away from women, let's say they get older or they take out the ovaries, whatever, hot flashes start and the blood pressures go up. If you give them estrogen, blood pressure goes down. So I think estrogen was a natural way for the body to reduce sympathetic tone, which is higher in women. So if you assume that, you could see why they would have their sympathetics is what controls PTSD, which fight and flight. So that's why they would be more sensitive to trauma, right? That's why all of that happens, I believe.
And just to bring it like to more layman's terms, I guess, we talk about estrogen, and when women are void of it, you take it away, it also affects their sleep pattern, right? So if it's affecting their
hmm
sleep pattern, then they're not doing their normal routine. They feel off. They're more
Right.
open and sensitive, and it also increases that anxiety and different things like that. So I
Well,
completely
yeah, the sleep is
understand.
connected. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting. So the sleep cycle is
that's
hyper
right.
important because that's when you get all the byproducts of thinking out of your body, right?
That's
So you
right.
cannot sleep deep enough. So it's all connected.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
That's right.
estrogen and fight and flight, and it's all mixed. And then you go into reproduction as well. Reproduction is a normal part of being a woman.
That's right.
And then
That's right.
when you have too much stress, then the blood vessels don't work right, then there is more spontaneous abortions, there is difficult labors, there is preeclampsia, which I hear you're an expert on.
Oh, unfortunately, yeah, it's just your
That's what I
body.
recommend.
It's just your body, right? Our bodies, and that's why when we go back to, again, I focus on women because one, I am a woman, I feel like we suffer in silence, right? And then I think about there's another person that I really want to bring to your attention. Her name is, she's right here in Northwestern, Dr. Inger Burnett Ziegler. Have you heard of her?
No, what should do?
Okay, so she deals with a strong black woman kind of mentality, right? Which also, if we are thinking about that and all the things you just mentioned, it suppresses our nervous systems because we have to show up. And then all of a sudden we're like, why is she snapping? Like, what's wrong with her? But she's silently dealing with chronic stress. She's silently dealing with depression. She's silently dealing with anxiety, silently dealing with the PTSD because in the world, she's supposed to show up a certain way, right? And so I think at least thinking about being a black woman, having the lived experience, I'm totally agreeing with you. And I'm saying that society also just plays into all of the things as to why we also have PTSD, right? Because we have to deal, we have to suffer in silence, we have to make sure the children are getting to school, the husbands are cared for, and now we're caretakers of our parents, right? And
Right.
so just
It's everything.
all the things, and when the health issues come up, we say, okay, I'm gonna go to the doctor next week, right? I have this headache, I'm gonna deal with it, not right now because I gotta take my mom to the doctor or whatever. I gotta go get my kid from daycare. Like, we are constantly moving, constantly moving. And I'm sure you can explain the science behind it more as to why men, sometimes when they're dealing with the simple issues of chronic stress, they cannot continue to constantly move. It comes out differently for them.
Well,
Whereas,
I mean, we can talk about being a male. I know something about
mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm,
So, A, we're not patient. Two, B, I mean, we men deal with stress, aggression usually. So the
mm-hmm,
easiest thing to do is aggression. Women have tendency to be more absorbing and whatever. It just how is it reared or how biologic. I mean, there's all type of theories. I really don't know.
mm-hmm,
But ultimately, all of the caretaker tests fall 9% on women, not on men.
mm-hmm.
But it's like men are, we operate differently, clearly.
That's right.
Um, I mean, the real biology, testosterone, whatever. But we as males, we are more set up for action as opposed to nurturing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can argue. I think there will be plenty of people who would argue that statement, but that's pretty much true. And I think putting yourself as number two, number three is what women a lot of times do. I think a lot of times that becomes an issue. So there needs to be a balance. Somewhere along the line needs to be a balance because the thing, especially for women, m- my the way I get them to do things I want them to do, like take care of themselves, take the blood pressure medication, not have strokes, little things like that that I'd like not to occur, is like so let's say you're dead tomorrow. Who's going to do all your tests?
Yeah, that's real.
I mean, that's a really marvelous way of, I mean, that's intimidation of a form, but
Yeah.
it's kind of realistic because I've seen when I was working in Englewood with Robin and you, I mean, I've seen 30-year-old women having strokes. That's a hard way to go. There was somebody
Yeah.
right next to Peace House, right? I don't know how old she was, but she was a pretty young lady. And that's strokes are ugly. Once you have a stroke, you can't really take care of the kids as well, yourself, your household, all of that. That's a
Yeah.
big problem.
But
That's a
again, it goes back to the weathering, right? It goes back to
Yeah, you're
what was
burning your
what
body
was
out.
what was explained in the deepest well. It goes back to the strong black woman mass. Like, it literally goes back to, because in the black community, women are having strokes and heart attacks at a disproportionate rate to white women their same age, right?
Right.
Because of, again, the different reasons, the different things that we have to deal with. But I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You said, what are the solutions, or like if there are
What
ways
can
to
be done?
handle it? What can be done? I think like individual practices, right? Number one, right? Somatic healing,
Totally
huge
agree.
on it.
Totally agree.
Restorative practices, figuring out the mindfulness and the nervous system regulation, normalizing therapy, right? Normalizing therapy, as well as, just taking time, as you mentioned, to go get your body checked out,
You got to do
to
it.
go up, very personal experience. Just 2 weeks ago, I was feeling very depleted, doing all the things, very busy. Found out I have low iron, right? But I took the morning to go to this brand new Northwestern clinic near my house just to say, hey, I'm feeling off. But how many people have that privilege? How many people can say, I can take the morning off
Right.
to go check on my levels?
But I think the
Um,
key point is if people, and that's education, right? That a lot of the education, it's not easy to do. But I
that's right.
think if you think about if you're exhausted and you cannot be very efficient in what you're doing, just look at it from that perspective, that's a problem, right? So that's why if you can think a little bit ahead, which is not easy to do. So, all right. Well, so what do you think? So give me three recommendations. If let's say you would like to pass that information to all the African American women, you'd like to spread the word. What would be the three specific recommendations?
Yeah, I think number one is what you just said, right? If you can't take care of everybody else, if you don't take care of yourself, and I think the very layman's term for that is you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And
True.
so all the things that we have to do will be there tomorrow. And so, how do we focus on today? What does it look like to focus on today? Take time for your mental health, whether it's waking up, taking a couple breathing exercises, doing a sun salutation, whatever it is, prayer, journaling. Take that time for yourself because it will really set the tone for the rest of your day. Rest. Rest, as we know it now, is an act of radical self care, and we deserve it. We
I
deserve
love that term.
to take care of ourselves in the simple form of rest. And find your community, right? Find folks that will pour into you, whether it's your girlfriends, whether it's your family, whether it's going to a healing circle or whatever type of class. Find your community, because at the end of the day, we can't do this alone. And so, what does it look like to be connected to other folks?
I think that's a great plan. I'd like to thank you for coming. I usually like to keep those short. I will send you the stuff. You can look at the final version, sort of about our digital issues, and let's keep
Perfect.
chatting, see if we can help more.
I appreciate you, Eugene. It was so good to
Thanks,
see
buddy.
you. Thank you.